today I'm going to talk about emotions, something we all know very well and we experience every day. I think emotions are the vital part of our lives. So you know how important it is. So just to begin with, I would like you to close your eyes just for 3 seconds and feel the emotions in your body. What are you feeling right now? What emotions do you have in your body? You can write down in chat if possible, please. Okay. What do you feel? Anticipation. Yes, nice to see you again. Thank you. Motivated. Right. Lots of different emotions, I guess. It's important just to be aware what we feel, okay? Sometimes we neglect what we feel, and it's really important for us. But today I'm going to talk more about emotions of teenagers, actually of emotions which happen to child when the child becomes a teenager. So it's like a very bumpy, difficult journey from childhood to teenhood. And before we start, really, I want you to look at the question here. You will get it in a survey in a moment, because we have prepared a special quiz for you, which we'll talk about later a little bit more. But I would like you to look at this poll and answer the question, okay? Because what are the most common big emotions you notice in your classroom? And how do they manifest in students' behavior? You can choose, okay? Just like a small game. Okay. You're choosing actual order. Wow. Okay. So actually, the answers are very different. You are actually pointing all the emotions, but the most common is frustration, expressed in low motivation and defiance, and excitement and anxiety. Okay. You can do the whole survey, the poll later on, because you can have it. So it was just to give you a flavor of the quiz, which we want to invite you to do. All right. So here's the code, but you can find it, I'm sure, on our website. So the shift from childhood to adolescence, a very difficult moment, is a pivotal time characterized by significant emotional, psychological, and social transformations. So students will not only begin perceive themselves as teenagers, but will also undergo numerous physical and emotional changes. So this phase is actually crucial for the formation of the individual identities, the attainment of independence, and the navigation of social crises. So here you have the quote: "It's hard to describe the metamorphosis that begins with the onset of adolescence. The transformation holds so many different threads." And you teach teenagers, so you know what I mean. So let me change that then. So the transition from childhood to adolescence, as I said, is referred as teenhood. And usually this is the period roughly spanning ages 10 to 19. And what is important, it encompasses the onset of puberty, identity formation, and increasing independence. It's worth to know that when we look at, when we consider the transition from childhood to adulthood, it's really essential to recognize that this process consists of 3 distinct phases. So we have early adolescence, late adolescence, and young adulthood. Each phase actually presents very unique developmental changes. So it's really very beneficial for all teachers, for us to comprehend these stages effectively, because then you can give better support to your students. What is also important that neurological development typically reaches completion between the age of 22, 25. Usually female mature a bit faster than male. And during this period, brain undergoes a very significant transformation, from being a child to being an adult. But today we are going to look more and more specifically on this first stage, early adolescence. So it's the age 10, 12 to 14, 15. And as I said before, is a very, a particular important time in a teenager's life because what is the definite end of childhood. If you have your own kids, you understand that it's really important when your little child suddenly stops being a child and it enters a phase of changes. So first, the changes are very sudden, but then really very profound. So what's happening first? What biological changes happen, because it's very important. First of all, we need to be aware that puberty actually is this catalyst for change. So puberty triggers actually a cascade of hormonal changes which lead to physical development. You can observe many symptoms like growth spurts, sexual maturation, and changes in body composition. So all these biological shifts, they have really important psychological implications on the pupils or students' behavior. First of all, is self-image and body image. As adolescents become more aware of their bodies, their self-esteem can really fluctuate because teens may experience like body satisfaction, especially now when we really live in a culture of which promotes certain body ideals. So you know that especially girls, they have problems with acceptance of their bodies, of the way they look. And research actually indicates that negative body image is very much linked to the increased rates of anxiety and the depression. The other thing connected with puberty is mood swings, because hormonal changes lead to mood swings and emotional instability. So adolescents may really feel overwhelmed by intense emotions, which sometimes manifest either as irritability, sadness, euphoria. You have the whole diversity and range of very different emotions. Um, Monica has told about the brain, and it's something we also have to be aware that the brain during this period of transformation undergoes significant maturation, especially and particularly in these areas which are responsible for decision making. Yes? So impulse control, emotional regulation. We have two regions of brain which are extremely active during this time. The first one is prefrontal cortex development, which is crucial, as it already been said, for reasoning, for judgment, for making decisions, but it can also lead to impulsive behavior and some difficulties in anticipating consequences of actions young people take. And the other part is amygdala activation, because amygdala is responsible for processing emotion. This is the region of our brain which is responsible for emotional regulation. So it becomes really very active. So the heightened emotional sensitivity can result, of course, in heightened feeling of anxiety, fear, excitement, and again, the whole range of different emotions. So this is important to understand that sometimes the behavior of your students, which can be difficult for teachers because sometimes, teenagers, teens can be really difficult, um, is very much related to the neurological condition and the moment of the development. What next? This is the time where the peers become increasingly important. Yes, the peer relationship. So the need for acceptance, for belonging, can also influence the adolescent's identity formation. So peer pressure becomes really huge. Adolescents may feel even compelled to conform to some, peers' norms. Sometimes they can lead to risky behaviors such as some substance use or engagement in different unsafe activities. And the other process is social comparison. Teens often compare themselves to their peers. And as we know, comparison is not good even for adults because then it can really impact self-esteem and body image. So when they have positive peer relationship, it can enhance self-worth. But when they have negative experiences, it leads usually to feelings of inadequacy. So it's very difficult for them. And also, when they become teens, when kids become kids, they start to strive for independence, for autonomy. So they challenge authority, they try to establish their own identities, and they desire for independence sometimes may manifest again at risk-taking behavior. So they try to assert their autonomy and they explore their limits. They try to, sometimes cross the boundaries. So they begin to make some own decisions, and these decisions very often lead to some conflicts, with parents, the conflicts with teachers, because not always decisions made by teens are probably the one parents or teachers wanted them to take. But this moment is extremely important for developing critical thinking and self-reliance of students. So again, it's something we have to be aware of, that this is just a normal developmental stage. Another thing is the exploration of sorry, because it's something, touching something. There is a psychosocial development theory by Erickson, and he points out that adolescents face the crisis of identity because of role confusion. So during this stage, teens explore their personal values, their beliefs, their sense of self, and they engage in this in exploration of different roles. So they suddenly, from being a kid, having some contacts only with friends at home or in a neighborhood, they try to experiment with different social groups, ideologies, interests. And failure to establish this coherent identity also can lead to role confusion. And again, what's the result? Feelings of insecurity, uncertainty about the future, and it can manifest again in anxiety or even some behavioral issues. And we have been talking, Monica has talked about sustainable education, about the goals, sustainable development, and things like that. We are all aware of that it's extremely important to provide sustainable education. Usually, when I talk about sustainability, I begin with psychological sustainable self, because I think that if you want to create a sustainable world, sustainable education, we need to start from ourselves. And the moment of transition from being a kid to being a teenager is also a very important time for creating, for developing this sustainable self. And I think that there are some 4 elements, 4 actually principles of sustainable self. From my research, I have found out that the first one is feeling connected to others. So you will have sustainable self if you feel connected. You need to be connected to others. You need to feel that you belong. Relationships are very important in our life. There's even a special field called interpersonal neurobiology, which examines the importance of human relationships in our life. I don't have time to elaborate on that, but it's really, really important. The second principle is sense of autonomy, so agency. What you do in your classroom to promote agency, or what happens when you don't give your students the agency, if they don't feel that they have any impact, that they have any influence on what's happening in the classroom. It's extremely important. If you don't feel ownership of what you are doing, then you are disconnected, you are not engaged. The third element is feeling competent. Create moments when students feel competent. So what does it mean? It means that we can focus more on their strengths than their deficiencies. I do lots of research on positive psychology, and I think that positive psychology brings a lot to our classroom and actually creates positive education where we really focus on strengths of our students. Everybody has some strengths. Sometimes we are not aware what strengths we have, or sometimes we don't use them properly or we underuse them. So allow your students to feel competent. The same is with us, with you. Feel competent. Think about your strengths. And the fourth principle is noticing what's going well. We are very much focused on failures, and very often we remember more what we have been bad at or poor at, rather than really noticing what's going on very well. I always say when I work with adults that try to think about some magic moments in your life. We all have some magic moments. When something has gone well, it doesn't have to be anything really big. Sometimes there are small moments, and the same is with our students. Notice what's going well. Maybe just one little thing, but it gives us the sense of success. And for students, for kids becoming teenagers, this is really important. Believe me that if they feel competent, if they know that they are doing well, then they are definitely much more engaged and motivated to do something. Because if you feel that you are a failure, you will not find the motivation. The next thing, because you know that it's sometimes very difficult to find the motivation because there are some negative voices in our head. And again, at this time, at this period, teenagers, especially teenagers or the kids becoming teenagers, they have some negative voices in their head. There are six which I'm trying to present here. Again, we don't have much time to explore, but you have few. The first one is the soap, the spirit of bad stories. This is the nasty two-faced creature which can see the worst in every person. So if you have such a voice, what the voice would tell you, what a stupid mistake, or don't talk to Peter, no one likes him, or everybody will laugh at you, things like that. So bad stories. The other one, which you can hear in your head, but also in teenage head, is the doom merchant. Doom merchant, what does he do? Doom merchant hides in the shadow. So his voice is just like a whisper, very slow, very scratchy. He takes bits of truth and then twists them out of shape by using the words. So it would be a sentence like, you will never be good enough, you will never pass this test, you will never learn English because you are too stupid, or somebody told you that you don't have linguistic talents. Yeah. Next one can be the worry word. Yeah. The worry word is a small, very persistent whine of a voice. And I think that everyone has a worry word. This is like the irritating voice, which is very difficult to shake off. So the worry words, imagine the worst which will happen again. So I'm for sure you will fail the test. I bet you won't do it. I bet you will not write this assignment. Things like that. So the next one can be of course the if only elf here. So the if only well, what does it mean? What does it do? He works through other people to create some stress. He says what should have happened but didn't if you know because he says it's too late now. If you have done something, probably it would be better. So this voice very often block out what might go better, what make things better. So of course we can also analyze some positive voices, but at this moment students have lots of negative voices because they are not they don't feel secure. So these critical voices are very present in their head. It's all very much connected with emotional development and emotional regulation. You know that teenage years can be rife with uncertainty, and they really all these physical changes which are associated with puberty, they create lots of emotions, as I said before. So they experience feelings of uncertainty, moodiness, sensitivity, self-conscious, and these mood fluctuations and intense and emotional responses can range from excitement, curiosity to confusion or even frustration. And it can happen really very, very quickly. During one lesson, you can observe students ranging from one end to the other one. Yeah? So very often also all these emotional experiences can be manifest as physical alignments. So sometimes you can see students who suffer from headaches, stomach aches, or some other somatizations. So it's also important to remember that it can be like manifestation of the emotion. It can be real and distressing. So the emotional regulation is something which we really have to teach our students, very important. Also for adults, because none of us is really, all of us need emotional regulation. So what is it? Emotional regulation is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage one's emotions. And if kids can do it, students can do it, they will understand their feelings, they will respond more appropriately to their emotions, and they can really develop resilience much better. So, you know, we can teach them this regulation doing lots of different exercises, because it's very much connected also to mental health issues. Yes, I think that we all have noticed that recently the mental health of kids, teenagers, has been really deteriorating after COVID, but not only. Research indicates that the rates of anxiety and depression has drastically gone up, especially among kids and teenagers. So the reasons are different, but particularly the social pressure, academic stress, or some family dynamics, bullying, many different things. And what is also observable that some teens may be very reluctant to seek help, because, as I said before, they want to be independent, they want to be autonomous. So asking for help for them sometimes is like being weak. Yeah. So, and then there's also stigma surrounding mental health issues, which then leads only to prolonged suffering. So academic pressures, we all know it, that it can also give lots of stress and anxiety, especially that from being a child, they become teenagers and the expectation demands are much higher. The stress is higher and they are really frightened of failure. So this fear of failure is really extremely huge at this time, because teens sometimes being so frightened, they even this fear of failure can prevent them from taking some risks, or pursuing their passions or interests, because they are afraid that they will fail, so they prefer not to do anything. And of course it stops them from growth and self-discovery. So there are lots of different things they have to learn, also like time management skills, and know how to use some support system, which is like access to mentors, peers, many different people who can help. One of the important thing is also healthy boundaries, because as I said before, sometimes students they experiment with independence, with autonomy, and they have to learn how to respect some boundaries. Yes, so open discussions about the boundaries is very important in our classroom. It's important for parents to provide provide students with that, but also in our classroom, it's good when we negotiate the boundaries and show that respect has to be mutual, because it builds the trust. Trust is absolutely fundamental in the teacher-teen relationship. When the trust is established, then your students will communicate openly about different challenges, experiences, and many things can be solved when they trust you. So very important thing. So what to do with these emotions in our classroom? The power of emotions, as I said, is huge. We can do many things if we use them properly, because they can create dynamic and engaging environment. We have lots of ideas. Well, you will have a new course, which is absolutely excellent, Find Your Voice, with lots of exercises which are adjusted really precisely to all these elements I have been discussing so far. So for a few elements, create emotional and safe environment. You can't do anything if the kids will not feel safe. So foster open communication. And the communication has to also refer to emotions. So it's good when you talk about emotions very openly with the kids. You can do either like regular check-ins, but before you start the lesson, you can ask them how they feel. And there are lots of tools you can use, is like emotional temperature scales, emotional wheel, lots of, or some pieces of paper with different colors illustrating different emotions. it's important that your students will know that their emotions are valid and important. So if they feel understood, if they know that you trust them, that you respect what they feel, they will like to be more engaged. Yeah, so sometimes they are frustrated, and you have to allow them to express this frustration, because you never know where this frustration comes from. Sometimes we think that it's us, it's our way of teaching, but absolutely not. Students, similarly as we adults, bring emotions to the classroom. Yeah, so something really horrible might have happened at home, and now they are in this emotional state. Another thing, creating predictable routines. Children need to feel secure in this time, and there are lots of insecurities. So if you have some routines that you start each lesson the same way, or you have some, routines during each time you meet, it will give them the sense of security. So because stability reduces anxiety, promote emotional well-being. So that's what is worth doing. So Wheel of Emotions, I'm sure that you know this tool, but it's a nice way to begin the lesson with and to talk about emotions. They can talk in pairs. They can even just show something. As I said before, the colors, if they don't want to talk about it. Um, Another thing, sorry, they need to be taught how to identify emotions. So um, help them recognize the emotions, label the emotions, because this is the element of self-regulation. So how can we do it? We can relate lessons to emotions. In many books, in course book, in our course book, Find Your Voice, you have some stories, you have some topics which are really very much correlated to emotions. So you can even start the story and ask them how would they finish the story, or could they analyze the emotions of the character of the story, what they would do if they were the character. Lots of different topics. So all this, also the emotionally charged topics. Again, in our book, there are lots of topics you can use, something which is interesting. Monica said that you have to enter into a teenager's room. You have to understand their passions, their interests. So select themes that evoke strong feelings, because this is the time when they need to be emotionally, focused. They need to be engaged emotionally. So when you talk about something which is interesting for them, or is a little bit controversial, it will be the right way of channeling or using the emotions in a positive way. Uh, Artistic activities, role playing, and drama. As some people know me, you know that I'm a drama lover. I have been practicing and using drama for many, many years, and I think drama has a specific and really amazing potential, because you can use role playing to explain, to explore and express emotions related to different scenarios. In using different drama strategies and conventions, you can actually create scenarios or dramas where children can practice responding to various emotions such as disappointment, anger, excitement. They can practice their social skills. There's the book I have written with my friend. You have some scenarios there if anybody would be interested to look at it. Personal stories. It's also important, because how do you want to build trust with your students? The best way to build a relationship and to build trust is to share your own experiences and emotions related to subject you are talking about, because this is the way how we can humanize the content and make it more relatable to students. Also, you can encourage students' narratives. So invite students to share their own stories, experiences, which relates to the lesson. Yeah, it helps to build community. It fosters connection among classmates, and it enhances engagement, because if you tell the personal story, you are much more engaged. It's you. Yeah, you are present there, and everybody wants to be noticed. But remember about that. Physical activities, I think something we have to remember about too, because the brain needs some physical activity. If you want your students to learn, you have to provide some space for some physical activity. There is a rule that if you have a child, let's say 6 years old, such a child can be focused and concentrate for 6 + 2, so 8 minutes. If you have somebody who is 14 years old, it will be 14 + 2. It goes like that till 20. So it's not that when somebody's 80, it will be 82. No. It is counted like that only till you are 20. But remember that nobody in the class will be fully concentrated if you don't change something, if you don't provide a space for some physical activity. Interactive learning, next thing, very important. So it's connected with, again, with doing exercises which are very much based on projects, on discussions, problem solving, and drama. Again, find your voice, excellent resource for such scenarios. Build relationship. So if you want to have really engaged students, you have to build relationship. How do we build relationship? Of course, in a group, in a team, but also we have to take the time to understand students and the individual emotional landscape. So very often we need to also provide like one-on-one conversation, because this is the moment when you can understand the feelings of an individual student, their interest. I know that it's very difficult because we have some time limits, but believe me that sometimes it's better to devote some time for this individual coaching sessions when you talk about individual interests, emotions, than not to do it, because they can easily make up for some English elements for learning a language. But if you don't devote enough time to them, maybe they will not be engaged, and maybe they will not learn some social and life skills, which are much more important very often, especially in modern world, than learning any subject, because it's easier even to do it individually. So it's very important to tailor individual approach to each student, because then when they have some difficult time, they will come and talk to you. And this support is absolutely precious. Again, we don't know what's happening at home, and teachers are a very important, meaningful, significant others in teens' life. So if you know the students, you can be more attentive to signs of emotional distress. And sometimes when personal issues or academic challenges happen, the student can come and talk to you. So support, foster trust and a sense of belonging. And there is nothing more important for students at this time than feel that they are accepted and they belong. Emotional regulation techniques, there are many, of course, and I'm sure that you are familiar with most of them. Now, one of them is, of course, mindfulness. There are lots of materials you can use on mindfulness, or breathing exercises. And I know that you can say that teens, they are not interested in doing it, but it's not true, because at the very beginning, they are very rebellious, and they don't want to do anything. They are apathetic. They are not emotional, so they see it like that and they prefer not to participate. But when you teach them slowly, you can start with the exercise which lasts like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then you can show them, you can use some music. And when they learn it, with time, it will be used by them too. Reflection and journaling. Also, you can encourage students to reflect on their emotional experiencing uh, through writing a journal. They can write what they feel. They can have like their own diary where they identify what they feel, because writing is very important for them to express what they feel. And again, if they identify how they feel, what the feelings are, and how these feelings actually influence the engagement and performance, because then you can try and reframe these emotions or the thoughts they have. Yeah, because everything starts in our brain, in our mind. The thought creates the emotion, and the emotion creates the behavior. It's a very simple principle introduced by cognitive and behavioral psychotherapy, that everything starts with the thought. If I think that I'm a failure, that I'm hopeless at languages, how would I feel? I will feel frustrated and hopeless. If I feel frustrated and hopeless, I will behave like that. And it's easier to influence the thought rather than emotion. So you can also have a discussion about it in the classroom and teach students that it's possible to influence the thoughts and then the emotions. You can do it also using some technology. There are lots of emotional videos, clips. Now psychology is very popular, so we have lots of materials. Again, in our book, there are some. There are some digital platforms for expression too, and you can use the technology. You know that young kids and students, they love using technology, so we can create like online forum platforms where students can really express their feelings which are related to classroom content. And again, if they can express it, it's like additional outlet of for emotional engagement. So there are lots of different techniques, there are lots of different tools. But first, you need to know what your students like, and slowly, step by step, introduce things. Because if we want to be too quick and impose something on them, they are usually very reluctant. They don't want to do it because they feel that their ideas and their opinions are not respected. And they feel being forced to do something. But when you do it step by step, I'm very idealistic and very optimistic. I think that there is a key to the door of each student. It's only a matter of time how you do it, and to find the right key to open the student. So just summing up, I created an acronym for the big emotions. So I think the first element is just establish clear emotional boundaries. Yeah, to know what is respected, what is accepted in the classroom, what is not. Interaction, next element. So open communication and sharing, very important. If you communicate openly, students feel trust and they also interact. Guidance provides support and direction for emotional expression. You can show them different elements. Again, you can use lots of stories, you can use drama, you can use lots of different elements to create like a safe environment, because sometimes it's easier to talk about emotions through some metaphors, for symbols, because students are too inhibited to talk about what they feel directly in front of the group, because they feel ashamed, they feel blocked. But if you do it using some stories or drama where they play the character or they can talk about characters, is a fantastic way to talk about their own emotions, but through the metaphor. Engagement involves students in emotional learning. So there are these all elements of social emotional learning we have been talking about, and Monica has told about you too. Management teach strategies to manage emotions. Another important thing, first, what does it mean to manage emotions? First of all, is to accept what you feel, not to suppress them. This is one of the elements of ACT, is acceptance and commitment therapy, which is very popular nowadays. I use it also in therapy. But accept what you feel. Tell me where you feel it in your body. And then when you have this moment to be aware, mindfully being aware what you feel, you can react to it. So it's one of the elements. Open dialogue, foster open communication about feelings. Tolerance, encourage acceptance of diverse emotions. That's what I said, that allow them. Sometimes you don't have to be happy every day because it's not natural. It's not human being. We have different emotions, both kids and adults, especially during this developmental stage. These emotions are so different and so intensive that we need to allow them to feel what they feel. Yeah? Inclusivity, create inclusive environments. So ensure that all voices are heard and valued. It refers also to special educational needs, to kids who are especially gifted, lots of different things, but it's the role of the teacher to create inclusive environment that everybody feels that belongs. Especially this moment in the development is important to feel that you belong, because as I said, students look for acceptance and belonging also, and being accepted by other students. So optimal environment create a safe space for expression, nourishing relationship, build trust and connections, as I told, and support, offer ongoing support to students in need. If they know that they can come and talk to you about anything, what worries them, you won. This is actually the victory, because it means that the students trust you and you are a significant person in their life, which I think is important, especially, as I said many times, in this moment of their developmental stage, especially that significant others, sometimes I call them like lighthouses, because we never know what's happening, as I said before, in a kid's family, and teachers can play a vital role and can make really a difference. Even if you say one student is aware of doing, it's aware of going.